Well, this is Baruch Fleischman, your Saba here at the Tikkun Elevator Kola, once again coming along, saying the simple story is contained in the book of Samuel. And here we come to the different chapters that are in the book of Samuel talking about the life of our king. It's very important to understand the situation in which we find ourselves today. But we only see the signs of our king in the songs of the Chayalim, which is the word for the soldiers in Israel. So where is our king? Well, our king is really in the song, but this is the life of our king. And it was at the return of the year, at the time of the going out of kings to battle, and David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David stayed in Jerusalem. And it came to pass at the time of evening that David arose from his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And he saw a woman bathing from the roof. Now this is the beginning of something really incredible. And the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman, and he said, "Is this not Bat Sheva, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And David sent messengers, and he took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, and she was purified from her uncleanliness. This is a little bit complicated. This is a complicated story. Maybe it's time that we look a little bit at the Pirush to try to help us. Because this is this is a married woman. So he says, and he lay with her. In almost merciless fashion, I don't know who the A is, he exonerates David from any of his actions of this chapter. Instead, he heaps upon him one transgression after another, until he arrives at the following total of 5 major offenses that were committed by our king, King David. Number 1, he had relations with Bat Sheva, who was the lawful wife of another man. Now, she was very young at this time. B, he shamelessly attempted to distort the ancestry of the child he fathered by recalling Uriah from the battlefront in order to have it appear that Bat Sheva's own husband had impregnated her. I need to read this again. He shamelessly attempted to distort the ancestry of the child he fathered, so she became pregnant. Now, by recalling Uriah, that was her husband, who was in the battle. He was a soldier, as we said, they were fighting in Ammon. By recalling Uriah from the battlefront, in order to have it appear that Bat Sheva's own husband had impregnated her. This ploy, if successful, would have allowed an otherwise illegitimate child to feel free to marry within the ranks of the Israelites, which we understand that marrying someone who is illegitimate in this way is forbidden. Now let me see what else. Let's see if I got a look. So, trying to read how the commentary works, working from left to right. So he said that the ploy, let's go back to what we originally said. This ploy, if successful, would have allowed an otherwise illegitimate child to go free to marry within the ranks of the Israelites, when the Torah strictly prohibits this. In other words, that this is called, in Hebrew, this is called mamzer. She's married, she has intercourse with another man, produces a child, but the married man continues raising the child of someone else. This is called a mamzer. So this is a very bad thing, and this is considered to be such a sin that the child will never be allowed really to, the child would never be allowed to take proper place amongst the Jewish people. The Torah strictly forbids this. He added the enormous sin, here's another of shvichas damim, to the previous act of Gilui Uriah, where he got involved in adultery by placing Uriah at the battlefront in a place where he would be killed. Furthermore, he was undoubtedly responsible for the death of other innocents who were forced to accompany Uriah to the front. Number D, that's 4. David did not allow Uriah the dignity of being killed on his own soil and by his own people who chose to bring about his death at the hands of Israel's enemies. Number 5 is number E. Apparently devoid of any feelings of shame or guilt, David took Bat Sheva as a wife immediately after her period of mourning with the death of her husband. A concludes that it was only David's sincere repentance that allowed him to re-enter the grace of God, despite the enormity of his sins. Despite this powerful reproach of David, the Talmud, the Midrashim, and the majority of other major commentaries come stalwartly to the defense of God's anointed. Whosoever says that David had sinned is but in error is the famous statement of the 2nd century Tana Rebbe in the Talmud Babli. I guess that's what TB means, and in the Masechtas, which is called Sabbath, page 56a. Indeed, close scrutiny of the halakhic issues involved, plus careful analysis of the text, can leave us with little doubt that A's harsh appraisal of David's action is totally uncalled for. Let's see how this goes. Our rabbis held a tradition that those who left their homes to wage battle on behalf of the house of David would give their wives a divorce. In other words, they would get a divorce which allowed them to marry in the event of their husband's disappearance. Now, to understand, you have to understand in Jewish law that a woman, in order to be divorced, needs to get a bill. It's called a get in Hebrew, and that frees her. So, but if you die in battle and she doesn't have a get, and you don't really know, sometimes people get lost in battle, you don't know what happened to them. So therefore, we have what they call a backwards or retroactive get that each soldier gives to his wife when he leaves the battlefield, when he goes to the battlefield. So he says this, you'll see this also in a Gemara called the Talmud. So according to R, I don't know what R is, and TB in the Talmud Babli, that's I guess Rebbe, these divorces stipulated that should the husband fail to return within a given period of time after the close of hostilities, the divorce would become valid retroactively. Now, a second opinion, this is authored by the Tosfos, the grandson of Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, that Rabbeinu Tam argues that divorce was granted outright, but was accompanied by a firm verbal pledge that the couple would be re-wed upon the safe return of the husband. So this is also, according to the Talmud, this was the pattern then. There were wars, continuous wars, one after another, as we see is happening in Israel. Now you think like the last time there was a really big war in Israel was in 1973, then you start looking a little bit more closely, you realize there was a war in Lebanon in 2006, and there's a pattern here, that the wars continue. So therefore, they're prepared for this. It's not like a sudden call-up from World War II. Either way, it was undoubtedly to assure himself that such a divorce would indeed be granted that David launched the inquiry of verse 3. For if we should assume that David was prepared to commit adultery, it would be rather ludicrous to think that at the height of his passion he should seek to investigate Bat Sheva's family background, because he asked, verse 3, who was her father. Clearly, it was only after he was fully assured that her husband had totally complied with the customary procedure of either granting a divorce that he allowed Bat Sheva to be brought to him. Now, according to Rabbeinu Tam, because he knew that she had been granted an outright divorce, and according to Rebbe, because he was confident that as a king he had power of guaranteeing the validity of the divorce by forestalling her husband Uriah's return from battle. Now the text itself, so he goes on, and I'm going to just stop right there and go back to our story. We'll go back to verse number 3. And David sent and inquired about the woman, and he said, "Is this not Bat Sheva, the daughter of Uriah, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And David sent messengers, and he took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. And she was purified from her uncleanliness. And she returned to her house. And the woman conceived, and she sent, and she told David, and she said, "I am pregnant." And David said to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah to David. And Uriah came to him. And David inquired concerning the welfare of Joab, and the peace of the people, and the welfare of the war. And David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah departed from the king's house, and there followed him the king's food. And Uriah slept at the entrance of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and he did not go down to his house. And they told David, saying, "Uriah did not go down to his house." And David said to Uriah, "Have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?" And Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open field. And shall I come to my house to eat and to drink and live with my wife? By your life and by the life of my soul, if I will do this thing." And David said if I will do this thing. And David said to Uriah, "Remain here today also. Tomorrow I will send you off." And Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And David called him, and he ate before him, and he drank, and he made him drunk. And he went out into the evening to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but to his house he did not go down, meaning that he did not go back to his wife, who was pregnant by David. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab, and he sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, "Place Uriah at the forefront of the fiercest battle, and go away from him, so that he will be hit, and he will die." And it came to pass, when Joab kept watch upon the city, that he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew that there were valiant men. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And some of the people and of the servants of David fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. And Joab sent and told David all the facts concerning the war. And he charged the messenger, saying, "When you have finished telling the king all the facts concerning the war, and it shall be, if the king's anger is aroused, and he says to you, 'Why did you approach so near the city to wage battle? Did you not know that it would shoot from up upon the wall? Who smote Abimelech the son of Jerubesheth? Did not a woman throw an upper millstone upon him from the wall, and he died there at Tebeth? Why did you approach the wall?' And you shall say, 'Also Uriah the Hittite is dead.'" And the messengers went, and he came and told David all that Joab had sent for him. And the messengers sent to David, "When the men prevailed over us and came out against us to the field, then we came upon them as far as the entrance of the gate. And the shooters shot at your servants from upon the wall, and some of the king's servants died. And also your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." And David said to the messenger, "So shall you say to Joab, 'Let not this thing displease you, for the sword devours many times this number. Strengthen your battle against the city, and destroy it, and encourage him.'" And the wife of Uriah the Hittite heard that Uriah her husband was dead, and she mourned over her husband. And the mourning period passed, and David sent and gathered her to his house, and she became his wife. She bore him a son, and the thing that David did was displeasing to the Almighty, the Lord. This is Baruch Fleischman. I'm your Saba here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We're not painting this story of David with a white brush. We see the blood on his hands, and we see the life that he lived. Nonetheless, the Torah reports it accurately and says what happened to a human being who became the king of the Jews 3,000 years ago.